This council meeting will be webcast, and I remind all those present their words and actions will be broadcast to a wider audience, and certain conduct is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Should any person not wish to be recorded, I advise they should leave the meeting room prior to any statements being made. Any defamatory statements made are not the position of council and remain individuals' opinion. Council accepts no responsibility for any defamatory statements, and all liability remains with the person making those remarks. So I'll move on to number 2, acknowledgement of country, and I'll call on Councillor Sutherland to please deliver an acknowledgement to country.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As a proud Gomeroi man, I would like to acknowledge the country that we're on. I'd like to say Yama. Yama Day Gomeroi. Wallabang Yani, Winungalaba, Ylambo Murray, Mauro Mara, Ngale Dama. Jilia Yanbali, Gary Marius Gaingal Gomeroi Yamranginda, Binalanginda, Winangalawa, which is the language spoken by my family and our families across northwest New South Wales, acknowledging the country that I'm on, which is the land of the Gomeroi people, and paying respects to our elders who have cared and still care for this country. And Mr Mayor, that occupation was noted by John Oxley and Thomas Mitchell as they came through the Peel River here where Tamworth is located, and referred to the Kalala Blacks. Where Kalala community is now was the original settlement of Aboriginal people on the Peel River. There was an important motion or idea held by that group of people that we belong to country and that country is always belonging to us. There is a song as the first council meeting I would like to share to remind us of that connection. It goes, Maringo yul bangol bal olgan dunya galayana Maringo ba yul bangol ba jelingol bangalayana Maringo yul bango olgan dunya galayana Maringo ba yul bangol ba jelingol galayana Maringo yul bangol ba bungan bungan dubar golga golga ragandul bungan bungan dubar golga ragandul bungan bungan golga golga ragandul bungan bungan dubar golga rag. And that is a song that was sung by the Kalala people on the Peel River here, reminding us that our old people are always watching and that we are held accountable to the decisions that we make back to the country that we're responsible for. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. We'll move on to the meeting prayer, and I'll ask all those that wish to please stand, and James Ardell to come to the...
Thank you, Russell and councillors. Almighty God, we celebrate the bountiful riches of our city and region and rejoice in the diversity of many nations who call Tamworth home. We thank you for the men and women of our council who serve our communities. Bestow wisdom, courage and boldness as you direct their leadership and deliberations. Bring hope, fairness and prosperity to all people who live and work in Tamworth Regional Council. In the name of our Lord Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll now open the meeting, and I welcome everybody here for our first meeting for 2024. The agenda item number 1 is apologies and leave of absence. We have no one that is not here, so we don't have any apologies. We'll move on to item 2, community consultation. I don't think we have any. We don't have anyone for community consultation. We'll move on to item 3. Could I have somebody please move the previous minutes? Councillor Mears, seconded Councillor Betts. Any questions? No questions, comments on those minutes? Could I have, I put to the meeting that they're a true and correct record of the past meeting. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We move on to item 4, disclosure of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary less than significant interest in the Merrill Minute 5.1, and the reason being my husband Tim Coates is the chair of the New England North West New South Wales Business Chamber Regional Advisory Committee. And I do emphasise the advisory part as he plays no role in decision-making process in relation to statewide body. I'll remain in the room to vote.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Further declarations of interest? There being no further declaration, we'll move on to item 5. First item being a minute. We have 5.1, which I'll move from the chair, and I'll ask if there's any comments from any of my fellow councillors. Anyone wish to speak against my Merrill minute? Councillors and those in the audience, this is a very good opportunity for us to build our relationships with the business community and further build our relationships with the stronger economy themes with the government ministers and leaders that could help us advance our regional priorities into the future. If we are to keep growing as we are and keep moving forward as we are and being seen as a very vibrant community, these are the sort of activities we need to get engaged in. Thus, I've moved that Merrill minute and I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carry. We move on to the next item, which is 5.2. Another Merrill minute. So I'll move that minute and I'll quickly talk to it. This has come about, councillors, as a result of conversations through Local Government New South Wales, where there is a real push for all local councils in New South Wales, regional councils and other councils to get involved and start raising the awareness that cost shifting from the state government, it's been happening for quite some years, so it's not political, it's been happening for quite some years, is really having a massive impact on what we can deliver to our communities with the funds that we've got. And I think that everybody would have made themselves very aware of what's in that report and probably fully across it, but I will ask my fellow councillors, does anyone wish to speak against that report? Does anyone wish to speak to that report, make comment? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. While I support your minute, I do note, and as a lot of people may, that it relates to the 2021-22 financial year, which was the 11th year of the former New South Wales government. And I agree with you and of Local Government New South Wales that it was an indictment on the former government in terms of their cost shifting. And I realise that the new state government has passed on obviously the cost of the emergency services levy to councils. I don't think they were nearly as mercenary as the previous one as yet. But I would like to see probably the report from the 2022-23, which was the last year of the former government, and ultimately 2023-24 financial years before we probably could pass any judgment on the current government in terms of cost shifting onto local government.
Councillor Rodder, we're not passing judgment on either side of politics, we're casting judgment on and supporting, in fact, supporting Local Government New South Wales on this push to halt the shifting of costs from state to local government, and of course in doing that, imposing those costs on our wider community. Councillor Baird.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I totally support the motion, the Merrill minute. I've been on local government for 30 years, or in excess of 30 years. And I've seen cost shifting happen ever since I've been on local government, back when we had Parry Shire Council and was the donut around Tamworth. The cost shifting that occurred then with the waste management process was just astronomical, because that burden was completely transferred in its entirety to local government. And when you had small councils, those huge environmental requirements for the waste management was just significant, and it really set us back in our budget program. And I know that happened to all the councils across New South Wales. Just recently, I'm the chair of the Traffic Committee, and when you look at some of the government agencies where the parking issues are that council has to now try and address, and the hospital comes to mind, to try and accommodate externally to where the hospital is the amount of traffic and parking that's occurring there, and council somehow is going to have to try and rectify some of those parking and density issues there. And that's just two examples. It happens everywhere, so I totally support it. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Just a quick one, Councillor Rodder, in relation to the 22-23 reports, they're not completed yet, so we can't actually produce them because they're not complete. But I'm sure that Local Government New South Wales, once they get their hands on those reports, will certainly make them available to each of the councils that jump on board and do what we're doing and support Local Government New South Wales in their push to reduce that cost shifting to local government and local communities. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think just in general, we all are fairly well aware of what cost shifting involves, but, you know, things such as libraries, state government was to fund 50% of that and now they're only covering 8% of the cost. So we have to pick up the cost for those extra services. Pensioner rebates, the government only subsidises 55%. I guess the other things that I can just give an example of is that the state government imposes legislative requirements on us and we have no choice. And the only way constraints on raising the revenue. So the only way we have of doing that is to actually through our rates. But rate pegging, once again, is actually only gives us a partial reimbursement and we're at the mercy, once again, of the state government with that cost shifting. We all know that councils and local government are probably the most efficient level of government, and we're also the closest level of government to the community. And once these cost shifting filters down through the different levels of government, it ends up with us, and then we are left to face the community to answer for things such as rate increases and reduced services, etc. So what I really would like to do is encourage everyone to read the local government cost shifting report. It's only 37 pages, but it really strongly demonstrates why Council needs to write to the New South Wales Premier, the Treasurer and the Minister for Local Government to urgently address the issues around this.
Thank you, Councillor Coates, and just as a note there, the Premier is very aware of it, but I think what we're doing here tonight, if this is passed and accepted by the Council, it certainly will go hand in hand with other local councils in New South Wales supporting Local Government New South Wales in their push to really bring it to a head. Further comments, Councillor Mears?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just like to support the motion as well. I think it's a good initiative from the council or local governments in New South Wales. Something we've been discussing since prior to us being elected on the council. In part, I think it's a bit late, but nothing's too late. I think we should have been putting this in prior to the change of government and with the previous government as well. And hopefully with a strong push from the local government of New South Wales, we might have a government that wants to do something about it. We can only hope. What I can say is too that a group of people that I'm quite familiar with outside of council have also raised those issues with the Premier and his departments at a branch level, and I think Labor Party's got a conference coming up this weekend, and those motions are being put forward on our behalf by the local Labor branch as well.
Thanks, Councillor Mears. Further comments, Councillor Southwell?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in terms of this report, I'm very much in favour of your report, and I think well done on putting this forward. However, sadly, I don't see any change coming. I think it's great that we're advocating, but this has been happening for years and years and years, and it's getting worse. The numbers there are pretty poor, 1.36 billion, which is an increase of $540 million, which is spread out through all of the councils to pick up. I think it's great that we're writing to the Minister. Unfortunately, I think it will fall on deaf ears because we've been advocating for this for a very long time. The cost shifting is just going on and on and on, and it is getting worse. So well done to you. I think it is important that we do something, but I might be a little bit cynical having been here now for a few years, but unfortunately I don't see much changing apart from more pressure on local governments to deliver more with less money. Thank you.
Just as a comment, I think the credit, a lot of the credit should go to Local Government New South Wales Board for taking up the challenge on this and pushing it the way they are, and then calling on us as individual councils to consider our position with it, and of course take a position whether we're going to support that or not, and I definitely think this is the way to go forward. So further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put that recommendation 5.2. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carry. Bit of an unusual meeting, first meeting, but we've got 3 mayoral minutes. So the third one is one that I'll put forward now, which is a dissolution of the Namoi Joint Organisation. That's an organisation that was formed many, many years ago. It was very well supported. Namoi Unlimited, it was very well supported by the previous government. Towards the end of the previous government's term, the support seemed to dwindle considerably. And at the moment, the current government, they're still talking about what they're thinking about in terms of how they're going to support local government in regions, and are they going to, I guess, fund some of these joint organisations into the future. Currently, our organisation has 4 members, 4 active members, and the funds that we contribute to that organisation are chewed up in administrative costs and audit costs, and there is very little left apart from some money to employ an EO, an executive officer, and very little money to actually put towards projects. This is not a good use of money. It's not a good use of our funds or any of the other councils that are a part of our organisation. So by doing what we're doing here, we've had a meeting. We've talked to all of the other 4, the other 3 that are, I guess, are part of this organisation. We will continue, hopefully, to operate and collaborate to get some better outcomes, and the funds that we do put into this organisation into the future will be used to deliver better projects into the future. We'll have more capacity, and with the support of our general managers, I don't like saying this publicly, but I will, without our general manager, we would have been in a heck of a place along this journey in the last year or 2, because without his support and his input, we were going to be struggling. So thanks, Paul, for your input. It's been very well appreciated by all, and I think that should just go noted. Into the future, when we start the new organisation, everybody, mayor and general manager from each of those 4 councils is going to have to provide equal contribution, and they've said they will. So I put to the council this recommendation. I ask, is there anyone wish to speak against it? Anybody wish to make comment on it? Councillor Southwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just briefly, I'd just like to say that, it is a little bit sad to see an organisation which had a regional alliance fold, but it's great to hear that we'll be creating something which is a lot less financially, a lot less of a financial burden to our council. I was the previous executive officer for another joint organisation a few years back, which was the New England JO. And really, a lot of these organisations were doomed from the start. There was 5 pilot JOs that started, and then later on they divided the state up into about 13 or 14 of them. But as you can read in the report, having each of these JOs to do, separate financial reports, internal audits, submit annual returns to the Office of Local Government, maintain an audit risk and improvement committee, all of that is an extreme cost. So it was, once again, a bit of cost shifting that happened because there was money set aside to create them at the start, and then it was, okay, off you go, good luck, and now you have to, everyone has to fork out to maintain them, which once again, it was probably, a bit doomed from the start. Great to hear, though, that we are continuing some sort of alliance, and I think it is important because there's great synergies within our region that we can work together on certain things. And I think that will be good moving forward. And well done to the GM. I've heard very, very good things within the region about Tamworth and how we have really sustained the Namoi JO due to Paul's leadership. So well done to Paul, and looking forward to see where this progresses into the future.
Further comments? Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just note in point 6 it says that that all there should be enough. My question is, are there enough funds in there to cover the winding up? Secondly, if there are surplus funds, how are they distributed and to who?
There is enough funds to wind it up, and I guess those funds would go into the new organisation. Mr General Manager, do you want to make a comment on that?
Through Mr Mayor, when the board met and discussed exactly that issue, Councillor Burke, there's certainly enough money to be able to wind it up, pay the audit fees and so on, through to the end of June. The council's also resolved to maintain their existing budget allocations for membership moving forward, because we'll be able to truly use those same funds that they've already made provision to actually deliver on some of the projects we want to do that we were previously spending on the administrative systems, employing executive officers and those sorts of things. So I think it's a very good solution, and then we will just evaluate the balance of those funds year on year as to what the following year's membership contributions might be, depending on what projects are being taken on.
Just a quick comment. Whilst each of the four councils this month will move a very similar motion based on what we're doing here tonight, it will need the concurrence of the Minister to dissolve the particular organisation that we're talking about. And of course that decision of having that organisation dissolved won't take effect until it's gazetted, so there'll be a period of time where we're really operating the way we are and not really achieving a heck of a lot because we don't have a lot of money to achieve much with. Further comments?
I've already spoken, but just a question in relation to that winding down. Has there been others that have actually been approved by the Minister to hold, or has that not happened as yet?
Through Mr Mayor, there's been two other JOs that have made application to the Minister for dissolution, but he hasn't made a determination on any of those. I will just add that there was a forum of general managers through the Local Government Professionals Group last week, and this item was on the agenda with the Office of Local Government. It certainly would appear that the mindset of the Minister is one of flexibility, that he recognises that the disparity between the size of some of the JOs has had an impact on their effectiveness, and certainly when you've only got a small number of members paying membership fees, the associated costs chew up a large portion. There are other JOs that have 13, 14 members, and they seem to be much more successful. There's a number of councils that aren't even part of joint organisations. A number of the large regional councils, Dubbo and Wagga Wagga spring to mind, chose to not even participate in the joint organisations because of the associated costs and because they believed that it would be too big of a burden on their council, being the large council in the group. So I guess we just make application and then wait for the Minister to make his determination around what the future of JOs will be across the state.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine is more in a question. If we're not having an executive officer, who's actually going to do the administration, and what will that look like, and who will pay for it or do we wait for the decision and we know what it's going to look like before we ask those questions?
Well, we're currently going through a situation at the moment where our General Manager has been doing the work and our staff have been doing the work through our General Manager. So that's why I say he's probably been the backbone for some time. And of course, we've just got to wait for this to hopefully get the right answer from the Minister, and then we'll be able to move forward. And each of the General Managers hopefully will work together to achieve the best outcomes. But I have to say that Paul's leadership at that level has really had a big impact on what we have achieved over the last number of years. I think, at the moment, we don't have the money to employ an executive officer and still and currently fund the other bits and pieces that need to be funded. So I guess you're carrying the can a bit, Mr General Manager.
Mr Mayor, if I could just add, and I have to say this and thank you for the praise, but there's a young lady in our organisation by the name of Lauren McPherson who works in our finance department, and she has been an absolute rock. She has done by far the majority of the work and made sure that we complied with all of our statutory requirements, finalised the financial statements, participated as part of the ARIC. She's an outstanding young lady, and I couldn't have done it without her because of all the other things on my agenda. But Councillor Case, in response to yours, those councils have been around for a while. Will recall regional organisations of councils, which were ROCs. Essentially, the way they operate is that each of the member councils take a turn in the chair. When you take your turn in the chair, the general manager of that council becomes the secretary, or essentially the executive officer for the year. The meetings are rotated amongst the councils, and the host council covers the expenses of hosting the meeting at their council because they don't have the travel expenses. So a much more fluid, engaged, and everybody knows that they're going to have their turn in the chair. So that's why they support the chair that's there, knowing that when they step into the chair, they're going to need that support as well. Cool. So it's a good way to run it.
Further comments or questions? There being no further comments or questions, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll now move through the business page to item 6, notice of motions from councillors. There is none, so we'll move on to item 7, open reports. Item 7 is environment and planning. We have no reports through environment and planning, so we'll move to item 8 and we'll move to item 8.1. proposed attendance. Can I have a mover? Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Tickle. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I support the recommendation. I see, as we're moving into the path of right across our council area and probably right across New South Wales into better management of our water resources and water reuse, it's absolutely imperative that we are on the front foot. I mean, there's $17,600 for the overall trip, but that is a small price to pay for the knowledge that we can gain out of working with the leaders in the world. Some time back, about 4 or 5 years ago, the director, Mr Bruce Logan, and I sat in on a Zoom conference that had leaders all over the world, and it really gave me a very, very good perspective on what the broader world's doing. And to have someone there around the table to be able to gain that knowledge, and I know Naomi is extremely efficient in what she does, and she will bring back extreme value to our community. And it goes back when we did the Nashville visits, and I can recall that one of our previous directors, Mr John Summerlade, went over to Nashville, and some of the information that he came back with, and I know some of the councillors, and Councillor Tickle was there as well, and I think Councillor Coates now, she was there as a partner, the benefits that have come back to some of our business organisations through that visit. This thing with Naomi and the world leaders with the reuse is going to be infinitely better. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? No one wishing to speak against that recommendation. Further comments in favour of the recommendation? Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I do support the motion. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Listening to Councillor Betts and speaking to others, it did initially look like it was not excessive, but a large sum of money to send someone overseas, when some of that information may have been gained via Zoom conferences or reports. I think in this space it's very important that our people have boots on the ground, can actually see what's going on and engage quite directly with the people. I'm certainly not one for Zoom meetings at the best of times. I think it's far better to have someone in the room at the meeting and someone that can actually tour the facilities to have a look at exactly what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Mears. Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think before I actually speak on this, I think it's important we all remember that this money, the cost for this professional development opportunity, is being funded out of the water fund, not the general fund. So for people to know that it's not actually related to, we're not spending special rate variation money, that it's actually been set aside. And I guess the other thing, throughout my career, professional development played a key role in not just remaining up to date on changes in my profession, but also contributed significantly to my ability to offer progressive interventions for the benefit of the people that I saw. So, and in fact, these days it's mandatory for people to retain their registration to actually have ongoing professional development. And I think this symposium and the site visits are going to enlighten us a lot in terms of what's available in areas that have similar climates to us. So when we look at these spaces, we're looking at Colorado and California, and in particular Texas. They all have high temperatures, they all have high number of sunny days, they all have relatively low rainfalls. So when we're looking at being able to see what is working for them and has worked for them over there for quite some time, to bring that knowledge back to us is only going to help us to inform what we do for our water security into the future. Thank you.
Thanks. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Southwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, similar to fellow Councillor Mears, initially when reading through the reports, I was a little bit, thought that's a large amount of money, the $17,000. However, I went and spoke to some of our executive team and to find out a little bit more information about this particular report. And upon further information, I guess the thing to highlight is very rarely do we send our staff overseas, and it is for particularly special occurrences where they're going to gain insightful information. I believe we did it when we built ALEC as well. We went over and had a look at some of those facilities overseas, and now look at what we've got with ALEC. It's an amazing facility, and I think having the boots on the ground, as you've said, is a very, very good thing. I'd just like to comment as well, I guess the fact that we're going over there for water reuse and learn more about that. That is probably the primary project that we're pursuing at the moment when it comes to our number one issue within Blueprint, which is water security. So it's a very, very important issue for us, and it's something that we're pursuing to find out if we can remain more sustainable in terms of water within our region. And I'd just like to finally comment and congratulate Naomi Shapansky. She's got an amazing reputation within council and obviously within the industry. To be asked on this particular, to go on this particular educational symposium, I think is a credit to her, and she will be amongst the world's best. So well done to Naomi, and supportive of the recommendation.
Thanks, councillor. Further comments?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And Mr Mayor, I just want to make comment, firstly to support the expenditure to send Naomi over to the States and to get exposure, but also do some research. I note that she needs to come back within 3 months with a comprehensive report on her study and what she's learned over there as well. But in particular, where the timing of the Baiada expansion out at Oakburn has got an incredible amount of earthworks done already, and for that to actually reach a second stage, it has to have a water recycling facility involved in it. So now's the right time for us to be doing it. The other comment I want to make is with regards to water. It's, as Councillor Southwell said, it's a major issue. It's not going away. And I read in the local paper Monday or Tuesday, must have been Monday or Saturday, sorry, where water was on the front page again, and there was a statement made in there about water, the amount of water that we have being available, sufficient to our needs for the next 2 decades. And Mr Mayor, I rang you about that. That concerned me, that statement, and you're able to report back to me that you're actually talking about the Kalala treatment plant, not our water resources in total. And I think that's really important, and I am using tonight's platform to actually help clarify that by way of this motion that's coming up tonight. And I think it's important that that our public do get the accurate information. So it's the treatment plant that will last 2 decades, not our water security.
Thank you, councillor Berg. Further comments? Did you want to wrap it up? No?
Yeah, look, thanks, Mr Mayor. I totally agree with my fellow councillors, and the investment, the time we're at is critical. Another benefit is that because of Naomi's standing in the industry, it's not only what she'll gain at the conference and at the side visits, but those contacts with those world leaders will go on for a long time, and be able to use that expertise and bring that interpersonal skills back to Tamworth is going to be significant. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, councillor Betts. That closes the debate. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 8.2, resource recovery. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Mears, second to Councillor Cates. Councillor Mears, you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we now move on to 9, governance and strategy. 9.1, the National General Assembly. I'll just make a note that as we step into that report that the in terms of putting together motions to go to conference, that period's been extended to the 30th of April, so just keep that in the back of your mind. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Betts, second to Councillor Tickle. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor, but we need to...
Anyone wish to speak against that? Further comments on it? There are no comments on that. Well, we do need to nominate some council representatives to attend to this as appropriate. So who would be Councillor Betts?
Certainly like to attend.
Councillor Sutherland?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to put my hand up to attend. Do I have to stand?
No. Anyone?
Save my legs.
Councillor Coates?
Getting older.
So traditionally, the mayor and deputy mayor go, and we normally have, I think it's 2 other voting rights. Well, no, this one we only have 1 vote, don't we? Two votes. So are there any other councillors that wish to go? It's always a very good forum to attend and see what's happening around the nation. So we've got Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Coates and myself.
I'd have to look at dates, but
Pardon?
I can put in the intent, but I'd have to check my dates of work and if it's nominated.
So you're tentative, are you, or?
Yeah.
And tentative for Councillor Mears, Councillor?
I'm happy to not go for this one. I have been a couple of times in the past, so I think it's fair that we all get a turn at seeing the conference and the issues raised. So I'm happy to sit that one out.
Same, I've been to them before and, I don't think it requires everybody to attend and I have had the opportunity.
So the report will be that we've got the council names, and then of course part of that recommendation is to determine whether any motions will be submitted. We do have some time to do that, so could I ask councillors that you give some thought to that and maybe talk amongst yourselves or ourselves about what we might consider as a reasonable motion, and we should try and get that together. But I believe while the motions don't close to the 30th of April, I'd like to see those motions brought before our council and before staff in early March, so that we can put them together in a constructive and a proper manner, so they can be delivered to the executive of ALGA. Councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, could we just request a workshop to discuss exactly that, so that we've got time to talk about what we might put forward?
Councillor Southwell, we do a heap of workshops. Could I suggest that if councillors get together and talk about what they might want to raise, please put them into an email, send them to me, and every councillor will get a copy of them. If we get enough suggestions, then maybe we can have a workshop so that we can limit it to many of the motions that have come before us as a council to consider taking to ALGA form part of their policy agenda and policy statements already. So it's a waste of time putting them up. There's new information or new stuff that's not within their policy framework, and then definitely we need to talk about doing that. You got a comment on that, Mr General Manager?
Oh, Mr Mayor, I think there are a couple of items in front of council at the moment, especially around housing, that might warrant a motion to the National General Assembly. And certainly water and water purification could be another one. So I think it's a national issue. So if the councillors would like, we will start to develop up some motions, some of those keeping and circulate them to councillors, and if there's any feedback.
Then if we need to have a little get together, we can. Yeah. Councillor Southwell.
Yeah, I think the attachment within the annexures was very, very good, because it goes through their policy guideline and then questions specific at the bottom that they want us to bring forward. And I think, there's a lot of things we could raise. Renewables would be another one. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Got to stand when you're talking.
Sorry, that's it.
Comments, Councillor.
And just cost shifting, Mr Mayor. Cost shifting.
And cost shifting. Okay. Cost shifting is more state than federal, but it does apply to both. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? We'll move on to item 9.2. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Southwell, seconded Councillor Coates. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Southwell? Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just wondering why it would be necessary to increase it by that significant figure rather than maybe just to 150. Or do we think they will be coming back again asking for an increase from 150 anytime soon? I just thought it looks like it's actually lasted, stood the test of time, that amount, for some time. And then, it's another 200,000. Why not just go halfway?
Councillor Rodder, I'll ask the General Manager to make a comment, but it makes absolutely no financial difference to our organisation whether we've got 100, 200 or 300. It just gives us the ability to not come back to council with a report if we need to increase it into the future. I guess if there was a requirement for another bank guarantee somewhere down the track, but I might ask the General Manager to comment on that.
You nailed it, Mr Mayor.
Are you happy with that answer, councillor Rodder? It just means that we don't have to come back if we go to 100, if we need 160. It just opens it up. So further comments, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. 9.3, sponsorship startup. Could I have somebody move and second that recommendation, please? Move councillor Coates, second to councillor Sutherland. Councillor Coates, you wish to speak to that?
Just very briefly, Mr Mayor, to say that this sort of sponsorship does align with our Blueprint 100 and also our annual operating plan. And as a council, I believe we should ensure that our support of commercial events is diverse and inclusive of all types of industry and business. So for that reason, I support it.
Anyone wish to speak against? Further comment or support? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move on to 9.4, integrating and planning and reporting. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Betts, second to councillor Coates. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on that recommendation, councillor Coates?
Yeah, once again, just very briefly, it was pleasing to note that the percentage of money that was spent in our smaller communities on projects such as sports and entertainment, parks and recreation, roads, drainage, buildings, etc., it actually ranged from 20% up to 87% of that money. So I thought that was quite pleasing.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. We'll move to 9.5. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move councillor Burke, second to councillor Mears. Councillor Burke, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this is an extensive report, and I think it is. It was incumbent on us to do it with the with the rate peg increased from the original budget scenario. And I guess the pertinent point of this whole report is with regards to the special rate variation. And jumping right through to the last page of about 100 and odd pages, where it says there's, even with the 4.9%, there's still a funding gap averaging 8.4 million per year over a 10-year period if we do nothing. If the SRV is approved, it allows council's sustainability scenario in the long-term financial plan to be able to exist and to be able to be comprehensive. And I think that the report should be commended for people to help understand why we made the decision that we made, I think back in the October meeting, and to understand that that sort of hole is certainly unacceptable in terms of our long-term sustainability plan.
Further, anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Coates?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just in regards to this particular report with the fact that it was the checking and the rechecking and the vigilance of our staff that actually enabled them to identify these minor errors and thus be rectified. And I think that's really important. We want to make sure that when we're submitting anything like this, that it actually is 100% correct. And I think that these, as Councillor Burke said, you know, the results of these changes were due to the changes in the rate assumption. So I support the report.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, sorry, Councillor Rodder.
No, you're right, Mr Mayor. I just want to say, while I support this report, I am opposed to the rate variation increase before I part.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to 10, which is community services, 10.1. And before I ask somebody to move that recommendation, I'd like to note to councillors that with the discussion with our director and I guess the author of the report, we're actually withdrawing that dot point 2. So we're really only voting on dot point 1. So I'll ask somebody to move that recommendation with just dot point 1. Councillor Sutherland, second to Councillor Southwell. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Sutherland?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? No, I'll put the recommendation to councils. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, will move to item 10.2, Tamworth Regional Youth Strategy. I will move in a second, please. Move Councillor Sutherland, second to Councillor Southwell again. Councillor Sutherland, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. Just in support of the motion, because this has been a long process. It's been a long process to get a Tamworth Regional Youth Strategy and Action Plan pulled together, and to have it coordinated at this depth with the amount of engagement from young people to create such an accurate reflection of the needs and wants and aspirations of our youth, and align that with the regional strategy that sits across the state, I think is absolutely tremendous. I'd also like to thank the Youth Council for their commitment and involvement to being able to get such accurate intelligence from our young people across the region, and also like to thank the staff involved, and special mention to Katie Orwell, who is here, and the regional and our staff directorate, our youth directorate, for being able to pull this together with the consultants. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Cash.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Actually, after reading the strategy and the plan, it was easy to actually identify ways that Tamworth Regional Council can assist in achieving the outcomes, and particularly when they align with our regional strategy. Things like the Life Ready, assisting with public and active transport links, they're things that we've already got underway, and we can build on those. The well-being, the sport and rec and healthy eating, both of those things are already happening in our community, so it's easy to change or be more inclusive of our younger people. The access and connectivity. I was interested in the co-location of services to make it easier, and in outreach services to our towns and villages. So I think that the other thing, when you actually look at some of the data around the youth in our area, and I know some of my fellow councillors don't like data, but when you go and look at some of that, the 12 to 24-year-old makes up 16% of our population, and the 15 to 24 make up 20%, but they're actually identifying as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. The median age of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people is 21, and the median age of non-Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders is 42. So I actually look forward to the opportunities that Tamworth Regional Council will have to advocate and provide support for education, activities and events that will be required as part of this plan. And I was particularly interested in the words that they were talking about around multiculturalism. There seems to be a great thirst amongst our young to actually learn more about other people that are living in our area. And I'll just close with, this is kind of like a modern twist to the old adage, if it takes a village to raise a child, which is an African proverb with the message that it takes many people to provide a healthy and safe environment where children are given security and support, where they can develop and flourish and realise their hopes and dreams. So I think with Tamworth Regional Council, in collaboration with schools and other agencies, parents and community members, we now have a strategy and action plan developed by our youth to actually work towards building that village.
Thanks, Councillor Cates. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a very exciting day for the youth of the Tamworth region. We have a regional youth strategy. So it's a 4-year strategy. It's been in the pipeline for many, many years. I'd like to concur with my fellow councillors' comments. Well done to Katie Orwell, who works tirelessly behind the scenes, as well as the Youth Council, who have, and the past youth councils who have, paved the way for this strategy. Also, well done to Mark Sutherland, previous youth officer of this council many years ago, and I think that the young people of Tamworth are in very, very good hands. I think this particular strategy and action plan, it is exciting to read and to hear about the ways that we as a council can support young people. I agree with your comments, Councillor Coates. And it's also great to see that it is aligned with the New South Wales Department of Youth's Regional Youth Action Plan, because what that means is that many of the grants that become available, we will align directly with some of those, which is very, very good. I think, you know, the thing here to talk about is the money side of it as well, which I think will come. So once this plan is approved, it'd be great to see some financial backing to actually implement many of these strategies that do require a financial support behind it. However, there are many others within the plan that don't require the finances. It's about advocating and working with others in the community. So well done to everyone. And as a mum of 3 girls, I'm excited for them. They're not quite technically in the youth category yet, but look, they'll see, you know, as this plan evolves over time, I'm sure they'll see the benefits of it. So very, very exciting day for young people in the region. Thanks.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, that brings us to the end of our meeting in open council, and before I go to ask for a motion to move into closed council, I'll ask the General Manager, has anyone asked for any of those reports to be conducted in open council? I'm asking the audience, is anyone wishing any of those reports to be heard in open council? There is no one, so I'll call for a motion to move into closed council. Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Mears. All those in favour?
Aye.
We'll move into closed council.
Okay.
And I'll call on,
We've got Jamie sitting there.
Jason to report, findings of, those councillors, item 12.2.43.
Mr Mayor, during closed council, you considered reports 12.1, 12.2 and 12.3, and you adopted as per the recommendations of the paper.
Thank you. Got a motion to accept? Councillor Burke, second to Councillor Mears, all those in favour?
Aye.
That brings our meeting to an end.